The Successful Servant Leader podcast is all about the pioneer woman on her unique journey of becoming and being who God has called her to be. The divine connection between the wealth mindset and success in every area of our lives can no longer be denied. Successful Servant Leader teaches us how to increase our confidence and strategically and effectively serve while in the pursuit of success in our lives, our faith, and our businesses. I'm your host, Victoria Grace, and welcome to the show. Hello there, SSL fam. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this movement. Welcome to this 77th. Yes, y'all, the 77th episode of the Successful Servant Leader podcast. I am so glad that you're here. You already know what I'm about to say. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back for intentionally choosing to be a part of this conversation that will surely help all of us level up spiritually, personally, and professionally. Now, if you're new here, what's up? What's good? How are you? I am so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead and make sure that you hit that subscribe button on whatever app you're listening on. You'll get a fresh episode on either the wealthy place, healthy behavior change, and current topics related to the modern day servant leader and the modern day pioneer woman every single week. Of course, I have to go ahead and say happy new week. At this point, it is December 12th. At the point in time that you are getting this, there are literally 2 weeks left in 2022. I mean, of course, we have to finish the rest of this week, but there's 2 Mondays left in this year, and the rocket is taking off. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the rocket is taking off, y'all. I'll have to say a happy new week. I pray that your last week was off the chain, and if it wasn't, let's do what we can together to make sure that this week is. Today's biblical truth is based off of Psalm 121 verses 1 through 2. And it says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Our biblical truth today says, God is my Father, my strength, and my help. He is the CEO of my life. This means that all that I need in every situation, I will look to Him. Stand firmly on that. Believe that you have the power and the authority through Christ to mentally and physically align yourself with God's truth regularly and consistently, not just on occasion. You guys already know that our biblical truths come directly from our amazing community, Dare to Pursue. The link to join for free is available in the show notes, okay? I need you to understand that you have to stand firmly on these biblical truths. These biblical truths are what are going to help you as the rocket is taking off, right? The biblical truths are what is going to help you to withstand, right, the tests and trials that come your way in this coming new year, but also to be able to lead in the way that He's called you to lead and impact in the way that He's called you to impact, so that you can bring forth His vision and His mission in this earthen vessel that's directly supposed to come through you. So stand firmly on these biblical truths. I promise you, I don't say them for no reason. I don't say them for my health. I mean, I do say them for my health, okay? I say them for my health, for my spiritual health, my physical health, my natural health, mental health, all the things. But I also say them because I need you guys to really, really understand their importance. So if you didn't say today's biblical truth with me, go ahead, rewind it just a few seconds back, say it with me, write it down, put it on a sticky note on your mirror if you have to. As we come to the close of 2022, you want to make sure that you start healthy habits now, healthy behavior change now, not at the first of the year. If you want to put yourself on a diet, or God is telling you to lose weight, or He's telling you to start a thing, you want to start that thing now. He's telling you to stop a thing, you want to work on stopping that thing now. Okay? So Let's get right into today's episode. I am super excited. Just in case, I just got to spill this little bit of tea before we get started. We do prayer call every single week, and I always drop the access information in the show notes for you guys. So make sure that you join me for prayer, okay? Every single Wednesday, 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is free and it is available to you. Again, healthy behavior change, healthy mindset change, healthy habits start now, not at the beginning of the new year. And what are you doing if you are not adding prayer to your life at least once a week? I mean, of course you should be praying every day, but prayer in a group setting, in a community in which God has ordained. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to even be able to say that. But a community that God has ordained, and he gives me very specific things to pray for each and every one of you. So make sure that you join us. Okay. That's my little bit of tea for this week. Also, once you join Dare to Pursue, which is our free community, again, not only do you get the Master Your Mind audio class, but you also get access to our community calendar, which also has the access information for our weekly prayer call. So let's get right into today's episode. As you guys can see, the title is The Rocket is Taking Off. The rocket is taking off. Also, this is our 77th episode, and I have two stories to share with you guys today. And I was contemplating and asking God, which story should I lead with? And I believe that He wants me to lead with the purpose behind this episode being titled The Rocket is Taking Off. So 2 weekends ago, I went to Columbia, South Carolina for a summit, the Kingdompreneur Summit with the Community Kingdom Business Network that I have been, serving in for almost a year now. And it was such a good time, you guys. I've just been able to cultivate relationships, and God has really just brought my voice to a place where I never thought it would be. And I know that He's going to continue to develop my voice in the prophetic and in other ways. And as I learn more, you guys will hear more, right? But while on that trip to South Carolina, we were all in the car, the people that I was with, we were in the car on our way to brunch. And you guys, that brunch was so good. Oh my goodness. Just thinking about it. I'm hungry right now thinking about it. Oh my goodness. Anywho, the brunch was so good. But on our way to brunch, we saw this huge fence, that went across this bridge, this body of water. And on the fence, there were locks, hundreds of locks. And when I say locks, I mean like your combination lock. Is that what it's called? Yeah, a combination lock that you would put on a locker. And so I had never seen anything like this before. And the person that I was with, they were like, you guys, did you see that on our way to brunch? Like, we should definitely go back. I believe, let's look it up. Basically, first thing first, we was like, let's look it up. What is this? And so we know, and we found out that they do this in Paris, or they have something similar in Paris. But basically, you're supposed to lock in with the love of your life. And so us being who we are, we decided to use this as a prophetic moment and lock in to the things that God has for us, and the things that He's telling us to do, and that He's leading us to, and the things that we're going to accomplish, and all of these good things, right? And so you're probably thinking, like, how are you doing that with a combination lock? So we went to the Dollar Tree, or actually it was a Dollar General, you guys. It was a Dollar General. Went there and bought every single lock that they had. And we also bought some permanent markers. And so once we made it back to the fence, of course, we parked and we walked, and we just started to just really pray, talk, and kind of just say, what are we going to do? And start to think about the things that we are locking in with God. And so as we were doing that, I don't know when this came up, if it came up at brunch or if it came up while we were doing the locks. I think it may have came up at brunch, but we began to talk about this concept of the rocket. And so before I get to the rocket, let me finish. We wrote down things on our locks, right? Just very specific to what God was calling us to do and what we were called to finish and do, and just declaring and decreeing that we were locking in for these things, right? So that was really amazing. And I wanted to share that with you because sometimes it takes for us to do things prophetically, even though we haven't finished it yet. It takes for us to do something in faith, even though we can't necessarily see it yet here in the natural realm. It takes for us to do something, even though it doesn't make any sense. It sounds crazy. I wrote very specific things on there that I haven't even done yet, right? And I said, you know what, God, I'm locking in because I know that you showed this to me. I know that you gave me a dream. I know that you gave me a vision about this thing. And I know that you said this is going to come to pass. And I know that you said that this is for me. So by faith, I'm going to write this thing on this lock, and I'm going to put it in a very specific location on this fence. And I'm just going to lock in. I'm locking in with you. So I don't know what God has called you to do, but maybe, just maybe here with only 3 weeks left at this point, if you're listening to this on Monday, December 12th, 2022, with 3 weeks left in this year of 2022. Maybe you need to step out on faith, right? Maybe you need to come up with your own, love lock situation, right? Your own locked in situation, and let God know that even though you don't see it just yet, you know that his promises still stand. You know that he is a covenant keeping God. He is a promise keeping God. You know that he is going to stand on his promises for you. Maybe, just maybe, you should prophetically put something out there. Something I also do now is I just start to speak that thing in advance, No, I'm not a BCBA yet, but best believe I'm calling myself a behavior analyst. I'm not saying I'm board certified or anything like that to come against any type of codes or anything, right? But I am a behavior analyst. And very soon here, I will be certified. You get what I'm saying? Like when I talk to people, I let them know who I am, right? And so maybe, just maybe, you need to step out on faith. Write it down. Go buy yourself a lock and key and just write it on there and lock it and forget the combination, because you can't be unlocked, right? Forget the combination. We took off the combination stickers, on the combination locks. They put the sticker on the back with the password for you to get back into it. We took those off so that we could write on them, because we're locking into what God said, and nothing or no man can close that door or unlock that. Get what I'm saying? Or take that lock off of the fence. Sometimes I think, and this is not even anything that I even wanted to talk about, but I think that sometimes we have to step out on faith in alignment with what God told us, or what he showed us, or what he said. Your bills or your debts are going to be paid off. Lock in on that. Lock in on it in such a way that it cannot be unlocked. Lose the password. Forget the key, right? Throw the key into the ocean, right? I'm speaking in a prophetic sense, or in a metaphorical way, right? Because I think that as Christians, a lot of times we think that we need to be so literal. And when you look at other religions, they're very literal. Okay, very much literal. And when it comes to faith and the things of God, we cannot lean into our own worldly understanding and only look at the things in which we can see from our natural eyes. So I'm gonna get off my rant and my tangent there, and maybe God will bring us back to that topic. But maybe, just maybe, he's leading you to do something prophetically before the end of this year, so that you are locked in for 2023. So back to the rocket is taking off. We were at brunch, and of course, a bunch of prophetic voices and people just coming together, and we're after God's own heart and God's will for our lives. We start talking, and the concept of a rocket comes up, you guys. Oh my goodness. A concept of a rocket comes up. And as we're talking about this rocket, and we're saying the rocket is taking off, is literally launching, some things. Ooh, this is good. This is good. I might have to do a part 2 next week for this. Some things have to fall off as the rocket is going into the next orbital dimension, right? Some things has to come off in the launch. Whew, thank you, Jesus. Some things have to come off in the launch. And because some things have to come off in the launch, the rocket itself has to be okay with those things falling off, because it knows if it takes those things with it into the next orbital dimension, it will slow it down. It will weigh it down, or possibly pull it back down into the atmosphere of Earth. When God, right, I'm going into God here, but when God has said this rocket needs to go to the moon, this rocket needs to go to Mars, this rocket needs to go to Pluto or Mercury, some things have to fall off because it won't be able to withstand the test, the trial, the atmosphere of that new dimension. So because I'm not a specialist on rockets or anything else, and I know this has me so excited because I know that I am a rocket and I'm launching. I'm actively launching into the next atmosphere that God is taking me to. This is just so good to me. So I had to go ahead and just go to NASA's website so we can get the literal definition or explanation of what a rocket does. So it says, when a rocket burns propellants and pushes out exhaust, that creates an upward force called thrust. To launch, the rocket needs enough propellant so that the thrust pushing the rocket up is greater than the force of gravity pulling the rocket down. According to NASA, unbalanced forces are required during liftoff. But once liftoff takes place, so launching takes place, those unbalanced forces must fall off because they will weigh down the rocket once it gets into the next atmosphere. And so I really want to come to you and I want to ask you, as you have made the choice to lock in, and I'm just going to declare that you've decided to make that choice to lock into the things that God has called you to do, what his will is for your life, and to be the real MVP in your bloodline, that you look at your life, you look at your mental health, right? You look at your spiritual life and you decide what needs to fall off as this rocket is taking off, and be intentional about being okay with that thing or those people falling off of you. Right? We don't want to go into 2023 with baggage that we don't need, because the mantle is already great, because the calling is already great. Number one, to be the real MVP, which means if you're new here, the real MVP is the most valuable player in this context over here as Successful Servant Leader and Dare to Pursue. The real MVP, the most valuable player, is the person in the bloodline that God has called to be the change agent and the force of change for that particular bloodline, to change the trajectory of that bloodline, to open the door to generational blessings, to be the generational curse breaker and the generational wealth builder. This is who, if you're listening to this podcast, you've been called to be. And now maybe some people before you already kind of started and their rockets took off, right? Their rockets took off because God did give them blessings. God did give them ideas, but for some reason, it just wasn't able to come to pass, or it took them a little bit longer than it should have for it to come to pass. Just think that maybe it took them a little bit longer, or maybe you've been hindered because as God is preparing and has already decided that your rocket is taking off, you've decided to hold on to the propellers that were supposed to fall off before you went to the next orbit. And so he couldn't take you to the next orbit or to the next atmosphere because you were still holding on to propellers that were just going to weigh you down. You were still holding on to people that were just going to tell you that you're not good enough for that. You're just holding on to ideas that were going to make you think that you are not who God has called you to be. You are holding on to trauma and spiritual things that were trying to make you to believe that you were not the real MVP, that you're not modern pioneer woman or successful servant leader, and that you don't have the right to dare to pursue because of the things you've experienced in your life or the choices that you've made. Number one, I'm here to let you know that that's a lie. You've been called and the rocket is taking off. But because the rocket is now taking off, the action of the rocket taking off is already started. You have to make the choice as you go into the next year. And I'm happy that God gave this to me now. So now that you have a good at least 14 to 21 days to start the process of daring to pursue, as well as letting go of the propellers that are going to weigh you down. So as we're all sitting at the brunch table and we're talking about this, our minds are blown and we're just like, thank you, Jesus, for the revelation and all the good things. And, we finished out the rest of this trip. It was just really, really great. And I'm just so grateful to God that he is enlarging and expanding my territory spiritually and naturally, and enlarging and expanding my network. And you guys will hear from some of these people in this new year on the podcast, which I'm super excited about. As you guys know, I've never had any guests. And so God is like, we are changing that. The rocket is taking off. Okay. And with that being said, I really wanted to leave you guys with this on this topic of the rocket is taking off and how you need to be okay with letting things go so that you can go to your next. God is always on time. I promise you. Right after we had this conversation, this was on a Saturday, that following Monday, one of the women that I was with on the trip, she came across this video of Tyler Perry. And I want to share it with you guys because she shared it with me. And I just was like, girl, I'm about to throw my phone when she sent it to me. And we just was running. I know in the spirit, we both were just running. Okay. So I want to share this with you guys really quickly.
And if I can leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this. Hear me clearly when I say this. There are people who come in your life sometimes to be there for a season. They weren't meant to be there always. Sometimes we find ourselves hooked up with people that we think are there for a lifetime, but they were only supposed to be there for a season. There are people who come in your life like boosters for a rocket. If you ever watch a rocket go into space, the boosters fall off when it reaches a certain altitude. Some people are not equipped to handle the altitudes that you're going to. So don't be afraid when they fall off. They're not bad people. They just couldn't go where you're going.
Now, you tell me, was that a coincidence or was it God that she came across this video right after we had this conversation? And not only did he talk about things or people falling off and they can't go with you to the next place, but he also mentioned that piece of the rocket. And I'm trying to tell you, I was going to throw my phone. I promise you. I need a better phone case because at the rate that God is going, sometimes I don't know how much more I'll be able to take before I just act in a way in which I usually don't act. When he said the boosters, when they get to a certain altitude, I probably should have watched this first and I could have given you those specific words. But NASA specifically says the propellers, either way, it has to fall off when it makes it to a certain level. Because it cannot handle the pressure at the altitude that you're going, because it cannot handle the weight of that new atmosphere, because it cannot handle the weight or the mantle that's on your life. And it doesn't mean, like he said, that they're bad people. If it's people that you got to let go of, right? It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that they were only meant for a specific season. They cannot go with you to the next season, to the next dimension, to the next altitude, to the next orbit. It just can't happen. So on this 12th day of December of 2022, and this is our 77th episode. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just share what I wanted to share too, because it all really just ties in together. It ties in together. And the fact that I'm making this episode, you guys, on this fence, I put my lock in the 12th space because that was the space I asked God specifically, where should I put my lock? And I was going either between 5 or 12. And I heard 12 so loud and clear because 12 is this number of completion. And for some of the things that I wrote on my lock, they will be completed. Okay, they will be completed in the name of Jesus. And so I don't think it's by coincidence that I'm sharing this particular story with you on the 12th day of the 12th month of 2022. So I'm going to share this last story with you guys because it's so in alignment, and I really pray that as I share my stories and as I share things that is happening in my life, as I actively dare to pursue and as I actively do the things that God is telling me to do without delay and without questioning and without asking for confirmation after confirmation, that it inspires you to do the same thing as well. So I was out just here recently, supposed to meet up with some friends for dinner. And again, God is just so good. And not to say that my friends are bad or anything, because we ended up doing brunch a different day, but we were supposed to meet up for dinner, and for whatever reason, it did not work out that way. And I ended up going to dinner myself because, as you guys know, I live in the DFW Metroplex, and from where I live, I drove all the way to Dallas, and child, it didn't end up working out. Our reservation was null and void because we were late, and I think it was definitely God's design that it just didn't work out. So I ended up going to this place, and I said, you know what? Let me just have dinner with myself. And the reason that I didn't have dinner with my friends, and she already know, she decided she wanted to go to Applebee's. Miss Ma'am, I'm not going to Applebee's. And there's nothing wrong with Applebee's, but I have decided that I don't go out to eat much. But when I do go out to eat, I'm going to try to feed myself the best thing that I can feed myself, or the best possible option. So I decide to go to this place called Harper's, and oh my goodness, you guys, if you haven't been to Harper's in Dallas, I'm not sponsored, obviously, none of that. It was so good. Oh my goodness. I want some of that food right now too. You guys, I am definitely a foodie. And I don't know if I said this on this platform just yet, but I know for a fact that God is calling me to in-person events, and I'm very excited about that. Just know it's going to be some good food, okay? Just know it's going to be some good food. So anyway, I get there, I'm sitting down, and I say, you know what? I haven't done this in a long time. Just took myself out to eat or anything like that. And so I got the truffle fries with a salmon. And let me tell the salmon, oh my goodness. Lord Jesus, help me. The salmon was so good. Anyway, it was a great time just to myself. I was able to take some notes and just kind of listen to my music, listen to my worship music, and talk to God. And, I was drinking my water, and it was just such a good time, a great experience. And so I did kind of do a mini vlog. I'm going to post that on TikTok today, actually, because I'm holding myself accountable. I'm going to post that to TikTok today. And when I left, I got in my car and I just felt the Holy Spirit all over me. So I started to play music. I started to just play the music through the car, and it was a whole concert. Okay. It was definitely a concert on the way home. That's just how I am. If you can relate, you can relate. If you get it, you get it. But as I'm driving home, it's raining. And if you know anything about the rain here in Dallas, one thing it does do is rain, especially in the winter months. And it rains hard, like raining cats and dogs. It literally rains so hard that as you're driving, especially if you're on the expressway and you're going, 60 to 70 miles per hour, you almost cannot see. So as I'm driving, it starts to rain, and the rain is on and off. This is just a recurring thing here in Dallas, but the rain is on and off. And as it's on and off, the music is playing. I'm just feeling God more and more. And, I'm still able to be in the moment, and, these people here in Dallas and these people in the South, I think they just don't know how to drive really in inclement weather and weather that could be dangerous. I'm from the North, and so I know all the things of what to do. So I'm turning on my hazards just so that people can see me and they can see my lights and all that good stuff. I'm moving out the way as need be, because even staying in that far right lane sometimes can be dangerous, you guys. So just make sure you're being careful. But as I'm doing that, God is showing me that He loves me, that He's there for me, that He has my back, that He's proud of me, and that He has me covered, that I'm blessed beyond measure, and I'm covered. And I'm so grateful. I'm just in this moment. I'm so grateful. And then this song comes on. It's Working by William Murphy. The song comes on, and like I said, you guys, the rain is coming off and on, right? Off and on. And when it comes on, it's on. I mean, it is pouring when it's on. And when it's off, it's completely clear. And so the song comes on. It's Working by William Murphy. And I was going to change it because I'm like, what is this song? Let me change it. But then I said, oh, I do know this song. I'll go ahead and have a little concert to this too. And as it's playing, God starts to just show me. Oh my goodness. He starts to just show me, because in the song, he says, there's a seed in the ground. I'm not a singer, but there's a seed in the ground. I've put seeds in the ground since 2018, since 2017, even before then, even when I wasn't really, BFFs with God. Like, I've been putting seeds in the ground, and the rain, as it was coming off and on, was watering those seeds in the ground. And I could just see it in the spirit realm. And I just was just taken aback and just overjoyed with what God is showing me. And he was showing me that not just for me, but for you as well. For those of you that have put seeds in the ground and you're like, I'm not reaping any harvest. I'm not getting any fruit from this. I'm not getting anything from this. I'm just pouring and pouring and pouring. I'm putting my seeds in the ground and I'm not getting anything back. He let me know in that moment that he's watering that seed, and not just watering that seed, okay? But there is a sound of the abundance of rain. I'm gonna read the scripture for you guys and we're gonna get off of here. But there is a sound of the abundance of rain. You need rain to water the seed. You need rain to water the seed. And for some of us, there has been a drought, but he said, no longer shall you be in drought. No longer shall you be in lack. No longer shall you be in a dry space, but he's watering the seeds that you've put in the ground. Even when you didn't see it, he's been watering them. The seeds have already started to grow and sprout up. I'm telling you, he just showed me a field of just crops, and I don't know, harvest just coming from the ground, you guys. And it was just an amazing experience. And he wanted me to let you know that it wasn't just for me, it was for you too. That your seed that has been put in the ground it's been watered and it's already growing. And so when I tell you that the rocket is about to take off, you've got to understand that when it's time to reap the harvest, you've got to be able to separate the wheat from the tares. You've got to be able to separate the good crops and the good fruit from the weeds. And back to that rocket taking off, you've got to be okay with letting the weeds go, right? So let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 41 through 46. And this is where Elijah prays for rain. And not only does he pray for rain, but he also just brings about this quickening, right? And I want to say that specifically because there's going to be a quickening. And I said specifically just a few minutes ago that me being swiftly obedient in what God tells me to do and not waiting for confirmation after confirmation after confirmation and just doing what he said, it's producing momentum for a quickening. So I need you to understand that this is the season where you give God an immediate yes, so that when the rocket takes off, there's going to be nothing weighing it down. So when it's time to reap the harvest, it won't be difficult for you to remove the weeds, right? So Elijah prays for rain, and you guys know I'm reading from the New Living Translation. He prays for rain because there has been a drought. There has been a dry season. And it says in verse 41, then Elijah said to Ahab, go get something to eat and drink, for I hear a mighty storm coming. Other versions of this says that there is a sound of the abundance of rain. Verse 42, so Ahab went to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel and bowed low to the ground and prayed with his face between his knees. Then he said to his servant, go and look out toward the sea. The servant went and looked, then returned to Elijah and said, I didn't see anything. Key word right now, you guys. 7 times Elijah told him to go and look. Finally, the seventh time, his servant told him, I saw a cloud about the size of a man's hand rising from the sea. Then Elijah shouted, hurry to Ahab and tell him, climb into your chariot and go back home. If you don't hurry, the rain will stop you. Verse 45, and soon the sky was black with clouds. A heavy wind brought a terrific rainstorm, and Ahab left quickly for Jezreel. Then the Lord gave special strength to Elijah. He tucked his cloak into his belt and ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to the entrance of Jezreel. There is a sound of the abundance of rain. Again, this is the 77th episode. Just a month or two ago, I told you guys to do what Tiffany Montgomery said specifically and watch Covered by God 7 times before the end of October. Yes, do you remember? If you don't remember, go back and check it out. Again, he tells him here, it took 7 times for them to be able to see what the Lord was doing. In another verse that I just read last week, it took 7 times for a man to be healed from leprosy. This is not a coincidence, you guys. This is not a coincidence. Go and read 1 Kings 18 verses 41 through 46 for yourself and ask God for revelation. Ask God, what do you need to do 7 times, right? For that thing to fall off, for this rocket to take off, right? 2 different things I said here. What do you need to do 7 times for that thing to fall off, for you to be healed, for you to be redeemed, for you to have that trauma gone, for you to have that imposter syndrome gone, for you to have that fear gone? Or what do you need to do 7 times to make your rocket actually take off, right? What do you need to do 7 times? And maybe it's that prophetic or stepping out on faith thing that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. I'm not sure what it is for you, but I implore you to take it to God right now, here and now. You have this week. Don't wait till next week. Don't wait till the last week of the month. Don't wait till the first week of January. Do it now. So that's what I have for you guys today. Your rocket is taking off. It's preparing for launch. And to be honest, you either going to get with it or get lost. You're either going to get on the rocket or you're going to get left behind with the things and the people that you're trying to hold on to because you're afraid to go to the next dimension. You're afraid to go to the next altitude. I love you guys so much. This was the 77th episode of the Successful Servant Leader podcast. I'm just so excited to see what God is going to do, not only with this show and with this community, but also in your life. Reach out to me. Let me know what God gave you. What revelations did you get from this episode? Reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram, or you can email me. My email is located in the show notes. Or reach out to me inside of our Dare to Pursue community. And I will see you guys in our next episode.